Welcome back to the program. What is happening right now with Russiagate has not ended. Russiagate may have started back in 2016, right? When they thought Hillary was going to win and then she didn't win. Their backup plan was to use the fake dossier, was to use fake intelligence, and to basically try to frame President Trump as some type of Russian agent. Now, obviously, we have been talking about it for the longest time, that it wasn't true, that he was not a Russian agent, but that didn't matter because the majority of the media went along with the fake intelligence. The majority of the politicians went along with the fake intelligence. And sadly, the majority of the American people went along with the fake intelligence. So this was not only election interference. This was and still is a criminal conspiracy. And I think what's important to understand is that those on the left are saying, well, this was over 5 years ago. There's a statute of limitation. The president has immunity. All these different things that they're talking about. Well, let me inform them of something, okay? Number one, there is no statute of limitations for U.S. Code 18-2381, which is what? Treason, okay? There is no statute of limitation on treason. That's number one. But number two, there is also no statute of limitation and or immunity that can be given or requested based on a criminal conspiracy. An ongoing, revolving, ever-changing criminal conspiracy. You see, this isn't just about the Russia hoax. It's about the Jack Smith hoax. It's about the raid on Mar-a-Lago. It's about the Robert Hur hoax. It's about all the other hoaxes that we have seen. It's quite frankly about Fannie Willis. It's also about the E. Jean Carroll. It's also about Stormy Daniels. It is the intelligence community faking intelligence in every single aspect of the intelligence community. And what is going to happen next is Hillary Clinton, that's right, Kankles McPantsuit herself, is going to be part of this criminal conspiracy. And remember, there is absolutely no statute of limitations on criminal conspiracy because the act of the criminal conspiracy has not ended. It is an evolving and ongoing process of criminal conspiracy. So what does that mean? Well, it means that every single thing that has happened over the past 10 years can be bulked together into one criminal conspiracy. You see, it's not just about Russiagate. It's about the whole entire intelligence community. And I can tell you right now, and you'll hear from Devin Nunes, the chair of President Trump's Intelligence Advisory Council, that he is overseeing, in some respects, what's happening in the intel community. Now, I'm not saying that he's in charge, but I'm saying as a senior advisor, as the chairman of the President's Intelligence Council, he is basically, has the ear of President Trump, but more importantly, he's good close friends with John Ratcliffe, the CIA director. He's good close friends with Kash Patel, the FBI director. As a matter of fact, Kash Patel and Devin Nunes worked together in 2017 on uncovering the Russia hoax. Okay? He also apparently knows Tulsi Gabbard pretty well and is working with a lot of the intel community. Almost like a godfather over them all, if you will. Maybe not in terms of power, but as a consigliere, as someone that is advising them and giving them extra points and tips and things like that. He is more than likely probably the one that recommended the people on the strike force, which apparently at this point hasn't been made public yet, perhaps maybe for their own security, and that's fine. But the next part of this investigation is going to be the raid on Mar-a-Lago. An unprecedented raid on a former president. No warning, no nothing, guns blazing, and don't forget, Biden's Department of Justice, led by Merrick Garland, gave a, quote, kill order. Shoot to kill if necessary order. Okay? Never forget that. The goons in Biden's DOJ, or Otto Penn's DOJ, let's call it what it really is, they could have possibly shot and killed people in that raid because they were given the green light to do so. Now, what were they doing? Why did they do what they did? Well, I think it's pretty clear why. Because they were looking for the 40-page document that Tulsi Gabbard has now dropped that clearly shows a criminal conspiracy. Moreover, they were also looking for additional documentation pertaining to Crossfire Hurricane, which, again, is where the Department of Justice worked with, I've already explained a lot of this, worked with Fusion GPS and Nellie Orr, who worked at Fusion GPS, whose husband was Bruce Orr, number 4 at the Department of Justice at the time, and he gave his wife access to intelligence as well as key cards and other things and servers, access to different servers to get the information to create the fake dossier and everything else. And then, of course, they worked with Christopher Steele. So now you have, of course, Hillary Clinton's campaign working with the Fusion GPS organization, which worked with the Steele dossier and everything else. And again, remember, Vladimir Putin intercepted this type of intelligence because why? Well, maybe because the former Secretary of State was so stupid that she used an unsecured server, and therefore the information was being able to be extracted. And so they knew about what was going on. They reached out to Brennan and Clapper and Obama, and instead of dealing with it, well, what happened? They covered it all up, and from Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, they ended up doing what they did, fake intelligence. Now, who else could be put into this? James Baker, lead counsel for the Clinton campaign. And let's not forget Perkins Coie, that's right, Perkins Coie and cheeseburger thighs, Mark Elias. Mark, you better be lawyering up there, fat boy, because you're going to be in court here pretty soon as well. And Jackoff Smith, who I've been calling him that since the very beginning, well, clearly he was also, number one, not even legitimate because he was not appointed under the right circumstances. They just threw him up there, okay? That was malicious prosecution. Thankfully, we had the judge in Florida basically see through it and shoot him down with everything that they were trying to do. So this criminal conspiracy, I want to kind of put this all into perspective so that people understand. This is not about a Russian hoax. Okay, this is not about impeachment 1 or impeachment 2. This is not about classified documents. This is not about the Mar-a-Lago raid. This is not about Hillary Clinton's emails. This is indeed a intel community-wide, well over 10 plus years criminal treasonous conspiracy. Okay? And every single person involved in it should be charged with treason because it is treasonous to do this by its own definition. And so there is no statute of limitation on treason. So if the Department of Justice and the FBI has the testicular fortitude to actually charge every single person involved with treason, then that's it. They're going to go to jail. And they're going to go to jail for a very, very long time. It's unfortunate that we don't put people to death anymore for treason. But they'll suffer. They'll suffer for what they have done. Now, I want to play you a little bit here of Devin Nunes. So here, listen to this.
This is an ongoing conspiracy. It hasn't stopped. And the people that have hoisted this on the American people for the last nearly a decade have never paid one price, and they're continuing to do exactly the same thing that they've done for a while. Now, look, people are numb to it. At the end of the day, the American people rejected it. They overwhelmingly elected Donald Trump to be president of the United States. And the president has asked myself and all the people that he's put into these intelligence roles and these law enforcement roles, he just wants it cleaned up. He doesn't want, after all of this, after all the country's been through, what we'd like to do, and I think what the president really wants, is to clean up the FBI, clean up the Department of Justice. And part of that is having accountability for the people who perpetuated this ongoing hoax.
And as we look back on how they actually did it, because it was very effective, they actually got away with it, and they had a president, a duly elected president, on defense for 4 years. In the summer of 2016, before the election, Brennan tells everybody, Hillary Clinton is up to no good. Let's walk through the timeline of how they achieved this.
And Director Ratcliffe brought this up, and he actually found it at the end of his tenure when he was the DNI under President Trump. So what Brennan never did during that time period, okay, is tell us. He never came to me as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee in 2016 and said what he told Obama. Through all the investigations in 17 and 18 and 19 and 20, he never said that, oh yeah, I had told Obama and these people about the Clinton, the Steele dossier and all of that.
That Clinton was coming out with a new story that Trump colluded with Russia.
Right, that happened in August of 16. He had a lot to say, but one of the things he didn't have to say was that he knew that this was a Clinton hoax. It wasn't until John Ratcliffe becomes the head of the DNI, he digs that up, he finds these handwritten notes where Brennan himself, and I'm sure if he wrote it down, he must have remembered. It's kind of
They actually found handwritten notes from John Brennan himself stating that he knew that the entire Russia thing was a complete hoax and that President Trump and Russia did not have any type of working relationship to try to do anything to steal the election. Okay? There's actual evidence and notes of that.
It's kind of an important point to remember that if one of the presidential candidates is cooking up a scheme, working with Russia and working with Russians to cook up this scheme, and then what you found out now from the report that we put out this week is also that the Russians knew about the scheme. So the only people that didn't know about the scheme were President Trump and the Republicans. We're the only ones that didn't know about a lot of this, and now we're digging this up years later.
So from around August to Thanksgiving, they were putting together a plan to actually go with it and push it forward. Then President Trump wins the election in 2016, and then the Steele dossier becomes something like an Obama dossier because President Obama decides to hide the real intelligence, which was Hillary was coming up with this scheme, and push forward fake intelligence, which was that Trump had something to do with collusion.
Yeah, and if you think about it, those two important briefings that occur after the election in 2016, one is to us, which we were briefed by the FBI and other intelligence agencies, and they said that, hey, we had the normal accountability during the election. Bad countries do bad things, but there was nothing unusual, and for sure nothing between Donald Trump and the Russians. Okay, that's Thanksgiving. The PDB that Director Gabbard released last week also says, exactly, almost identical as I remember it to what we were briefed on. And then something changes on December 9th. And so there's a lot of people that were in that meeting with Obama. Many of those people, graduated. They actually graduated up. They moved on. They got higher positions within the Justice Department. And look, I think what also can't be forgotten here is in this ongoing hoax that jumps from Russia collusion to everybody forgets about. Remember the fake whistleblower on Ukraine and the impeachment? Then you move to the 51 spies who lie about the Hunter Biden laptop. But probably the biggest thing that still needs to be researched and the information needs to be put out to the American public. I'm not sure if the Justice Department is going to use it or not. but it's this. Why was there a raid at Mar-a-Lago? What led to that raid? What led to the appointment of that special counsel? What the hell were they doing at Mar-a-Lago? What were they looking for? This was an unprecedented act in U.S. history where the Department of Justice raids a former president's home. So, look, it's great that we look in the past, and I'm glad that and it's important to understand the past. But that raid on Mar-a-Lago wasn't very long ago. That was an attempt. Whatever they were looking for, whatever scheme they had cooked up, whatever they were looking for, they didn't find, clearly. But that was to try to stop President Trump from being reelected.
Unbelievable.
That's all it was. And so there's a lot more to do with that. I'm happy that the Justice Department has this strike force. And look, I'm going to, as chairman of the President's Intelligence Board, I'm going to try to get out as much of this information and get it declassified as possible.
So you believe that they raided Mar-a-Lago because they were looking for this? They were looking for the intelligence community assessment, your report on Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. That's why they raided Mar-a-Lago?
I believe it had to be one of the things that they were looking for. Because look, that report is pretty damning. If people take the time to read it, it's 45 pages. It spent, we had a dedicated team that spent nearly 2 years down at the CIA looking through this. It was blocked from getting out. And the reason that report is so important, right? That's, let's just dumb it down. Simply put, we went through every single piece of intelligence that existed. And if anything, it was clear that if Putin was going to do anything, he probably wanted Hillary Clinton to win. But in fact, if you just apply a little common sense to it, the fact was that nobody around the world thought that President Trump was going to win in 2016. Same with Vladimir Putin. He didn't either. And so when you go through that, that was the intelligence. Every piece of intelligence that existed we went through it. It's in that report. And so, and what do we know? After all this, after all, Trump and Russia and collusion, the two people that didn't collude? Trump and Russia. That's what we found out. We know that Clinton colluded. We know the DNC colluded. You had John Podesta on earlier, sitting there lying on television. He cooked that whole damn thing up. He had to be part of the team that cooked that up for the Clinton campaign.
Let me get your take on this strike force. Do you think the DOJ's strike force will be able to actually give us accountability? Everything's now going to flow through this strike force, right?
Yeah, and look, and eventually, I'm assuming once they gather all this information, you broke news this morning with John Ratcliffe saying that there was additional information in the Durham report. I've never seen that. So that will be new. That'll be new information. I think once you compile that, then the strike force will have to work with real investigators, unlike the investigators, these fake investigations that have gone on. So I'm confident that between the Trump Justice Department, working with Kash Patel and Bongino over at the FBI, they'll have a real team of people that will actually look at this in its entirety, get to the bottom of it, and then at that point, there's no question. John Ratcliffe, as you know, made criminal referrals. Don't forget, I made a dozen criminal referrals as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So, those are all sitting over there somewhere. So hopefully the conspirators will be held accountable.
I want to talk about this. I want to know who should be criminally prosecuted.
So anyway, then they talk about a bunch of other things. But it's exactly what I said. It's not just Russia. It's not just the 51 agents. It's not just the 94 indictments. It's everything. The whole thing is a criminal conspiracy. And if the strike force has the testicular fortitude to really go to where the evidence takes them and be brave and really seek justice, then a lot of heads should roll. God willing. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.